And the more authentic that you are in business, period, I think the more successful you are because you don't have to do all this faking all the time. So I think the more authentic you are, first of all, the better your pictures turn out because you're comfortable.
Hey, I'm Stephanie Fager, and Empower is my middle name. Okay, well, not really, but it should be. I believe that empowered people empower people, and I'm obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, want it, and will buy it. As the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group and the author of 2 books myself, I have merged my love for reading books and writing books and marketing books to help nonfiction authors like you with laser-focused strategies and tactics to write books that sell, promote books to those who need and want them most, and build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. Think of this as your one-stop shop for marketing insights from an author who has been there, done that, and understands exactly where you are. All right, so get your pens ready because I'm ready to empower you on all things photography. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. Our world has become an extremely visual one that makes us a bit more social per se, and now more than ever, photos aren't just important, they matter. From selfies to live photos to headshots and lifestyle branding, photography is a way that we tell stories. And for you, my author friend out there, I want to make sure you have what you need to tell your visual story in a way that complements your written one. This season of the Empowered Author Podcast focuses the lens on photography insights on everything you need to accompany your author branding efforts. Come on, we have a whole lot to talk about. Let's dive in. Chanel, we are back for episode 3 in this season of the Empowered Author Podcast.
Yay!
And I almost feel like we could have stopped at episode 2 and everybody would be like, I've gotten so much info about photography that I am prepped and ready, but there's still more.
Yep.
There's a lot that we still want to make sure that you go prepared, because at the end of the day, any investments you make in your business, your book, your authorpreneur journey, we want to make sure it's the right ones and you get the most bang for your buck. You're the most methodical and strategic. And for those who follow the podcast that have worked with me, they know that I'm a big believer in movement with strategy.
Yes.
Please don't do stuff just because the rest of the world is doing it. Do it because it makes sense. The book I've been telling you about, The Big Leap, in the beginning, the author talks about how a neighbor of his one day made a comment and said, 50 years ago, by the way, this is a piece of nugget he carried all the way through his life. But it said, when you go to the pearly gates, something like this, when you go to the pearly gates and God talks to you, he's not going to say, hey, Chanel, how were you? And were you similar to Moses? No, he's going to say, hey, Chanel, were you to your fullest capacity?
Yep. Absolutely.
We're giving gifts and, we're giving charges to do ourselves, and comparing yourself with someone else is just a recipe for disaster in the first place. So don't do that.
Don't. Not at all.
Don't. Be you, and let's allow your photography to show that.
And the more authentic that you are in business, period, I think the more successful you are because you don't have to do all this faking all the time.
No.
So I think the more authentic you are, first of all, the better your pictures turn out because you're comfortable. Yeah, it just makes business easier when you can be true to yourself the whole time.
And that attracts people.
It does.
People get excited and want to work with people who are real people, that they know that there's no front. You know what you're going to get.
You got to find your tribe. And so there are people who will like you. We talked about that already. There's some they are going to freaking love you. You're going to be a rock star. You are going to be, you know what? I say this all the time. You got to be Beyonce and you got to find your beehive, okay? Because there are some people out there who are going to be waving you down because they just think that you are such the shit and they need you in their orbit. So when you find your beehive, that's your zone. You need to stay in that zone and hang out with those people because those are your people. So it's I like that.
It is. But when you are truly you, it is easier. You're not having to be stuffy. I think about like when I get on a Zoom call sometime, there'll be times that I don't have my makeup on or that I'm wearing a t-shirt. You know, I know when people hire me, it's not for me wearing a blazer. They're hiring me for my mind and what I bring to the table. When you are authentically you, it just feels good.
It does feel so much better.
It does. And when you find people that you can work with that are in alignment with who you are, it feels good too. And that actually is a great segue into our talk today, which is on how do you find a photographer that's right for you? Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. I mean, there's going to be photographers that aren't good fits. Even if they have quality, amazing photos, that doesn't mean they're the right fit for you. So I would love to pick your brain from so this will be a fun episode because as the photographer and as somebody who has looked for photographers before, let's talk about both sides because it's also as important for me to find the right photographer as it is for you to make sure you have the right client.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say for me, the first thing is, do you like their work? Because everybody has a different style of work, and they might be light and airy or dark and moody, or it might just be straight up country. I don't know. Everybody has a different style. And so you want to look at their portfolio and see, you know, is this the style that I'm going for? And any photographer can really go and pull out 2, 1, 3 good pictures from a session and create a beautiful portfolio. But I used to be a wedding photographer. Sometimes I still shoot weddings. But when I talk to wedding clients, I always tell them, you need to see the whole gallery. Let's see the whole wedding. Don't let them show you just the portfolio that has, 12 amazing pictures from these different weddings. See what you're actually paying for the whole thing, and if you fall in love with that, then that's the photographer for you. So I think checking out the portfolio is important, but before you go to the portfolio, go to Pinterest, go to Google, go on Instagram, start saving those examples of pictures that you like, because then that shows what your style is. It gives you the idea of these are the kind of pictures that I like, and so it'll be repetitive. You'll start to see a pattern in what you like and what you don't like. Then you want to find, obviously those pictures were taken by photographers, so maybe you can go find that particular person who's taking those pictures and hire them. I think that's a great way to find a photographer is find the photographer of the pictures that you like best. Like you did it. You see Melissa's pictures, and then you went and asked her, who's this photographer?
And then I found one of my buddies. So you said 2 things I think are interesting. One, how do you know if it's the right photographer if you don't know the type of photography you're drawn to?
Yeah.
So I definitely think go to Pinterest, do some research, look at people that are in your industry or are in a similar industry, see what they're doing and what do you like or not like about those. Because it's as much about what you're drawn away from as it is that you're drawn to, and then finding a photographer that's in that space. So this is something I love about you. You do not you might talk about hustle, and you don't hustle in that way. You are you, and if you're a good fit, great, and if you're not, great.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some photographers out there who hustle so bad that they're like, I'll be what you need.
Well, that used to be me. Until you figure it out, there's a time and a place for you to learn, and sometimes we're learning on clients. I feel like now I know that this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do it, so I have a process that's in place. It makes my life easier. It means that I'm getting better results for my clients. I'm working in my zone of genius, like you said, and so when you come to me, you know what you're getting because it's proof. I've done this over and over again. I'm not a family photographer who just happens to take a brand photo for you. And a photographer is a photographer. If they can create images, they can create images for you.
Sure.
But it's just like, I can cook good, but that doesn't mean I need to make the macaroni and cheese for Thanksgiving, because there's a macaroni and cheese person in the family, and that's the person who needs to make the mac and cheese, and maybe I just bring the cheesecake, So it's the same type of thing. You can find a photographer who will create a beautiful photo for you, but if you want the rest of the business knowledge that comes with, because for me, it goes beyond just taking the picture. Because I'm a brand photographer, I make sure that I know about branding and I know about marketing and I know all the things that go into it. And, even working with Stephanie, I've learned a lot more about an author in particular. And when Stephanie first came to me, I was like, okay, author headshots, let's look at that. And how is that different from a corporate headshot? And how is that different from a model headshot? So there are differences. A brand photographer is going to know those differences. And so that's one of the questions you want to ask them. Have you ever taken headshots specifically for authors before? Because those are different than taking headshots for your big corporate offices.
Absolutely. Everybody could, in essence, do it, but when someone knows this inside and out, you're going to be getting more than you know. So I photo directed a different photo shoot for an author in a different city, and it turned out fine, but it wasn't what we do together.
Yeah.
And it has a lot to do with, because the photographer that was selected, they do family shots.
Yeah.
They don't do brand photo shots. So I was observing, it was cool. I was in Zoom and I was helping to photo direct. So just FYI guys, if you don't live in the greater Louisville area, I can still help. And we got beautiful stuff. But I was observing how the photographer was doing things, and I thought a brand photographer, this would come second nature. They wouldn't be overthinking these things. They would already know the types of angles and needs and stuff.
Yep.
They would be thinking about it differently. So I definitely think, yes, finding somebody who loves this type of work and isn't just doing brand photography or author photography. Because, I think there's a blend where both of those can coincide.
Yep.
If they love that, they're going to be investing energy in researching and being better at it.
Yep. And just a Google tip. I figured out that the consumer thinks differently than the photographer. And so we're typing in stuff and it's not coming up what I'm looking for. So I would type into Google brand photography or brand lifestyle photography, at the very least professional headshot photography. Those things are going to be what picks up the type of photographer you're looking for.
Ooh, that's a really good tip. Hey, Stephanie here, and I wanted to jump in and take a little bit of stress off of you. If you are planning an upcoming photo shoot for a headshot or a branding session, I'm sure you have enough to worry about already. Whether you like to be in front of the camera or not, one thing is certain: to take full advantage of your photo shoot, you want to be prepared. Chanel and I have a quick planning checklist with some tips for you to consider as you plan your next photo shoot, and we want to give that to you. So visit empowerprgroup.com/authorphotography to download it today. I am confident you'll find it extremely helpful. And a side note, it's what I use every time I'm prepping for a new author branding photo session myself. But enough about that. Let's get back to the conversation. For our season, I did some Google search for author photography, and that is not what people have.
Right.
So just know, authors out there, if you search author photographer, there's not that person doesn't identify that way.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important, I think, to collaborate with an author marketing strategist, a team, someone who understands authors in collaboration with a brand photographer.
Yep.
I think that's where the beautiful synergy comes. And that's another tip that I had. You want to make sure that you find someone that will collaborate with you, with what you need, with your team. And I have worked with photographers that are very much no, this is my craft and this is how I'm going to do it. And fantastic. But the best solution and the best outcome is when we all look at it from our different perspectives, and it just so happens that the photographer brings it to life. So I think collaboration is key.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things that Stephanie knows about the book world that I'm not going to know. And so, I listen to what her ideas are, and sometimes she might come up with something crazy. Good crazy. If I as a photographer say, you know what, Stephanie, that doesn't really work for what we got going on, and this is why. And so being able to, collaborate with her in that way where I can say that doesn't work. I get what you're saying, but that's not going to translate in the photo. So let's do it this way instead. Yes. And then in this ways that we you should be able to talk to your photographer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say a photographer shouldn't tell you no, because there's been times where I flat out looked at an entrepreneur and said, "No, we're not doing that."
And I trust you.
Yes.
Because you're going to say you're not going to like it.
Yeah. And then, so my objective is to know your brand, to know your business, to know about your book, so that when you come to me with these crazy ideas, I can say, "Ooh, that is amazing, and it's going to turn out fabulous, and I know just the things that we can do to do it." Or, I'm listening to you, and I hear you, but no, we're not doing that because
yes.
blah, blah, blah. So for me, a great photographer is also an educator, especially in the brand world. Mm-hmm. Because if you know the branding, which you should as a brand photography, then you can educate your clients. Mm-hmm. And I feel like photo shoots turn out better when I can provide that education. This is what we're doing, and this is why. I have this signature thing where I'm like, hold your hand up, or look this way and point. And we're pointing at nothing, right? And I'm like, just point. We're going to do this Vanna White looking pose. Yes. And they like, but why? Why? Because that pose translates very well when you go to create marketing images around your business. So on a website or in an ad, a Facebook ad, if you're looking at it, then they're looking at it, because this point is drawing the attention that way. And so they're like, this feels weird. I'm like, I know, but watch this magic when we put the book right here, or put sale, or put your logo right here, and now all the attention is drawn to this thing. And so I think just having somebody who specifically knows about those little tweaks that will make a big difference in your branding, that helps when you're picking a photographer. And like I said, everybody who has first of all, everybody who has a camera is not a photographer, right? And then everybody, because we all have cameras. It's 2022. Yep. You have a camera on your phone. Yep. But that doesn't make you a photographer, because a photographer is going to create images for you. But every photographer is not created equal either. So, like a family portrait, somebody who focuses on newborn photography doesn't necessarily know what it means to have an amazing headshot. They can take a headshot of you. They have all the equipment. They have the things that they need to take a headshot of you. But are they really going to capture the same type of personality that your professional headshot photographer would do? No, they won't.
Mm-hmm. They're great in what they do. And it's, we talk about understanding your niche, and the same is true in photography. Know that niche and find a photographer that works within your niche. So you mentioned newborn. The newborn photographers at the hospital, they do phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But they know and research how to make newborns calm to be able to get those best shots.
And it's a lot of work.
Wedding photography, they know what type of angles to look at and look for. Like, I'll never forget the photo of when I was walking down the aisle. The photographer had one focused on me and one focused on my husband. Yeah. So they needed to see what Corey's perspective was. I wouldn't have thought about that. Yeah. Understanding that, I think, is important. But you mentioned something, and took me back to the photo shoot that we did for one of my amazing author clients, Marcy. Mm-hmm. Her book is all about uncovering secrets. Yeah. And I remember, I read 99% of the author's books that I work with, depending upon the collaboration we've got going on. But I'm knee deep in Marcy's work, so I know this. And I remember telling her, bring your shoebox, because your book's called The Shoebox. That's just a duh, bring a shoebox. Yeah. I'll never forget, while Marcy was getting her makeup done, you took this shoebox and you gave a little photo shoot to the shoebox. And I look over, I'm like, what are you doing? And you're like, look at this. You knew what she wanted. You knew her colors, which were like golden and teal, which normally you shoot really bright photos. Yeah. But you knew the message behind this book was deep and had dark elements. Yeah. And it was almost like God had the shadows in the right way.
The light was so perfect. And, there was just I saw the light. A great photographer sees light. I saw the light that day and the way it was shining on the floor, and I was like, ooh, I like that.
You're like, I'm getting it done.
We're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it now. So bringing props, it just makes and breaks the photo shoot. It makes a big difference, especially with branding, because we can tell the story with those little things. And for Marcy in particular, that shoebox had, family pictures. It had mementos and things like that were just important to her story. Yep. And so if you read the book and then see the picture later on social media, it all connects. Like, that picture could also be a photograph within the story, and it would make a big big difference when you can have that visual along with the story you're telling.
Yeah, it was stunning. But again, it goes back to if you find a photographer that understands brand photography, and then a photographer who understands author needs and how it all interconnects, like that. I didn't say, Chanel, go do that. Marcy didn't say that. She was getting her fake eyelashes put on. Right? Like, you were like, I see an opportunity. I'm going to do it. So make sure that you understand that. And that goes to making sure you work with a photographer that knows your end goals.
Yep.
It's another thing I've noticed. A lot of photographers, and you know this because I always, every time you're like, I know this, Stephanie, you don't have to tell me, but I still say it. A lot of photographers want tight shots. And I'm like, give me tons of negative space. As a marketer, I want negative space because if it's a high-res photo, I can always crop it. But if it's super tight in the first place, I can't add to it. And I love extra space and using that for materials. Yeah. So you want people to know your goals.
And then there are ways to create that extra space. So when I talked about finding the right location and finding solid place to take a picture, if we take a headshot of you on a solid background, we can extend the backdrop in Photoshop to make it more horizontal or more vertical or whatever we need to do so that we can create that negative space that Stephanie is talking about to add whatever brand message that we need to add onto the photo.
Yeah, there's tips and tricks, but it goes back to some photographers aren't good at any of that. So you want to uncover that and looking at their work, try to look at their work without the work that they give you, right? And that's just with anybody. Like, understand and really look around and see the whole package. Seeing if they work, within the types of needs that you are, but also, like, do they fall in your budget and timeline? Like, some photographers, it's 9 months out, and you might need something tomorrow for your publisher. Or budget-wise, like, you might get one photo with this photographer that you could get 5 with the other, and the other is perfect for you too. So you want to kind of weigh those things, I think. Yeah. Those are important to know going in because it'll let you know what can and can't do.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is going to be the delivery of the photos. I value printed photography. It's important to me. Pictures are hanging all over the place in my house. I value the printed photo, but when I'm getting my brand photos taken, my thought process is how I'm going to use them in the digital space online. And so I need the delivery to be in that manner. So I need digital images. I don't need prints. And so I wouldn't go to a photographer that only offers prints because that doesn't serve me in the way I need. Right. Also, a thing to think about is how you're going to use the images and make sure you talk to your photographer about that because there's different licenses.
It's true. There's things you need to think about. And these are additional things that you want to... I never thought of this stuff. Yeah. I think the last thing on this one that I want to wrap up on, and I'm a big believer in like your gut and your intuition. And I say go with your gut, and then when I made that note, I literally wrote in, and don't worry, like we can edit your gut. I am a believer, maybe this is the mom in me. I know like deep down, when something didn't go right, I knew it wasn't going to. Yeah. So when I'm picking people to help me in my business, if it feels right, I'm not saying just run and do it, but for me, if it feels right, and I trust this, and it came recommended by someone I trust, I'm going to do it. Yep. And I think that's a big part of thinking about, picking a photographer. If it's somebody that you have seen their work, somebody that came referred, whatever, I think your intuition can go a long way because I think the reason that I feel like we always get great photos together is because I trust you 100%. I don't know. I never ask, show me that photo. Yeah. I don't care because I know when we walk away, we're going to come back and I'm going to be like, oh, you got that, So trust is big. Trust is major. And I think that one of the beautiful things about photography is because you see the product and you see it on lots of different places. If you look at that portfolio, you look at that gallery, you already know what type of product you're getting delivered. Yep. The flip side to that is go and read the reviews or reach out. I mean, especially if it's a brand photographer, that means that they made public images for another business and you can ask that business, hey, what's Chanel like? Do you like her? Yes. Would you go back? Would you go back? How was your experience? You can ask those questions. And I recommend that you do because if they don't tell you good things, then you don't want to go there. And Google, you can do Google reviews and all the things. And you want to, investigate because photography is not cheap. So it's an investment. Right. And I think a lot of people come with the misperception that
photography is cheap. It's not. And if you're getting cheap photography, then you're getting a cheap photographer, and you get what you pay for. Yeah. And so it's a big investment. And sometimes it can cost thousands of dollars, and sometimes you'll get lucky and it's $300 or $400 or something like that. But whatever you invest, you want to make sure that it's worth it and that it's going to increase your bottom line. And that's what brand photography is doing. So you want to do the research just like you would do the research before you bought a new laptop that needed to do all the things so that you can print.
You do research on how you're going to publish a book or what type of marketing ideas you have. Like, you should think about these things and make sure that they are in alignment with your budget, your timeline, your needs, your goals, and everything underneath. And then at the end of the day, once you look at all of that, talk to yourself, have that internal conversation and say, does this feel right? And if it does, like, I live in a world, I'm a realistic optimist, but I live in a world where I ask myself, what's the worst that could happen? And I would say, in the grand scheme of things in life and your author journey, what is the worst could happen in the photography world? It's not awful. Like, it can be fixed. Things can be fixed.
It's not a wedding, so we can redo it.
We could always do it. Chanel, this another great episode, and you were beautifully dropping hints about the next episode, where we're going to actually talk about a couple of things specifically that you don't know you need to know that you need to know.
Okay.
And I think that'll be really insightful for our author friends. So
let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I feel pretty lucky to stumble upon an amazing photographer who gets me, who gets my authors, and understands marketing too. It's like the perfect trio. And I found her. She's amazing. But I realized finding your perfect photographer might feel daunting, but it doesn't have to. Rest assured that when you reflect on the questions and insights that we shared on the episode today, you will be able to understand early on if a photographer is the right fit for your needs and for you in general. Photography is an art, remember that, and you want to find a photographer artist that can help you paint the visual story that you really are seeking. So don't just use someone you know or the first person you reach out to. Even though they might be great, make sure you ask your questions and know what your goals are so that you can find a photographer that can help you achieve them. We all know a photo is worth 1,000 words, and too bad, author friend out there, that the photo can't write 1,000 words for you. Am I right? The truth is that photos tell a story, and since you're in the business of storytelling, let's make sure that your author photography tells the right story. A story that aligns with who you are, what message you are sharing, and how people can work with you. Author photography can be game-changing in your marketing tools, a meaningful piece of your website, and a tool that you use in your visibility strategies. Chanel and I want you to get the most out of your photo shoot, so we've compiled a planning checklist to help take the stress out of planning your photo shoot and ensure that you are getting the most bang for your buck. Visit empowerprgroup.com/author photography to get that downloadable. And if you happen to be in the greater Louisville area or are willing to come to us, believe me, we have plenty of authors who do. We'd love to capture your story through meaningful photography. And if Kentucky is too far of a drive, no sweat. We are happy to do a photo planning consultation with you and your photographer to help you achieve the best results that you seek and that you need. We are ready to empower you as you embark on your author photography needs. Now remember, empowered people empower people. I've empowered you. Now, with photos to help you tell your meaningful story, it is your turn to empower others.